This is the AM News. Details now. Labour unions are calling for a major overhaul of SNIT, pushing for capped expenses and a reduction in government influence on its board as they consider taking control of the organisation. In a recent discussion on the latest Joy News National Dialogue, Labour experts emphasise the need for urgent reforms in the pensions industry. They urge the government to address the long-standing issues with Tier 2 pension payments and to review the current law to ensure that pension contributions are tied to gross enrollment rather than just basic salary. Michael Ashali has more in the following report.
SNIT's decision to sell over half of its shares in 4 hotels sparked controversy, leading to massive worker protest against the deal tied to the Minister of Agric. After months of dispute, SNIT cancelled the sale under pressure. Many now see SNIT as a sinking ship in urgent need of reform to secure pension funds. Speaking on the Joy News Thought Leadership Program, the General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union of TUC, Bernard Ejay, stated that the current benefits are inadequate and unsatisfactory.
I mean, we are very much concerned because the truth is that majority of pensioners from the public sector, especially those with Public Services Workers Union, are receiving very low pensions.
The consensus around the table was same. SNIT has failed with its mandate. Dr. Kwabena Nyako Otu is the Director of Research at TUC.
They have not lived up to our expectations if you focus on SNIT.
For some of them, the main problem is the governance and politicization of SNIT.
Because consistently we have seen that there are governance problems with SNIT. There are operational problems with SNIT.
SNIT and its management of our pension resources have not been the best. And I don't need to elaborate. All the things we have known about SNIT over the last few years illustrate clearly that pension fund management is a serious problem in this country.
Independent researcher Abdullah Mashoud, who is the Executive Director of Africa Center for Pension Research, believes the problem is far worse.
Social Security in Ghana has gone through a number of phases. In fact, from independence in 1957, we have had 7 major legislative reforms as far as Social Security is concerned, including 3 amendments. Now, what has happened over the period is that we have the most recent one, which has to do with the implementation of the Act 760, that is the 3-tier pension system. A few years after the implementation, that is about 13 years after the implementation of the Act 766, I can confidently tell you that the objectives of the Act 760 or the reforms in 2008 has not been fully realized. And what were the objectives? The first objective was to enhance retirement income security to the Ghanaian pensioner when they retire, and also to set up uniform rules and regulation for the administration and payment of benefits in Ghana. Those were the 2 objectives. And about 81% of employers who are employing between 1 to 30 employees are not paying Social Security contributions under Tier 2. And that is as a result of, issues with enforcement of compliance. Again, if you take a look at Ghana Statistical Service data, what we are finding is that even within the formal sector, we are finding that about 26% of those who work in the formal sector, mostly in private establishment, are not covered by the basic national social security system, let alone Tier 2. So coverage is a very big issue, and I'm saying we have significant disparities along the lines of tiers, Tier 1, Tier 2 disparities, gender, and sector of work. We are talking about private, public, and we are talking about informal and formal.
Labour expert Austin Game says there are more lapses.
For now, the accountability aspect and responsibility on the part of the governing the structure is not adequately in place. And I think that once that can be taken care of, that should go a long way to solve the problem.
But SNIT would have none of that. Chief Actuary at SNIT, Joseph Poku, says payments are done by the book.
Lowest earner will be based on the minimum wage, the national minimum wage. You cannot pay contributions below the national minimum wage. That is the monthly equivalent of the daily national minimum wage, which now is around almost 400 Ghana cedis also. Probably if we were to be going strictly according to the law, according to the the formula in the law, the person wouldn't even get a 300 cedi. But because of the administrative instruction that we can't pay anything below 300. That is why it's even getting the 300. At the same time, somebody is getting 187,000 every single month. And in January, coming January, this person getting 187 is most likely you'll get over 200,000 a month.
He also says they are working to rope in more contributors.
We have embarked on this program, and somebody mentioned it, the Self-Employment Enrollment Drive initiative. It started last year. As at the time, we had about around 14,000 people who had signed up. And as we speak, about 2 weeks ago, when I checked the data, we had over 100,000 now. So multiple folds. So that's the way we feel that it should go, because that is the fuel for the scheme.
The panelists believe that there must be major reforms in the pensions industry to bring it back on track.
It's important that we strategically, as organized labor, also look at going into the future, representation on any kind of board when it comes to these investments, prepare our people well, follow up on them, engage them, get them expert advice so that they can do their work well. One important thing is also about the unification of pensions. It is not the best. You know, when the pension reforms came into being, it was only the army that was exempted. As we speak, all the security forces have gone into captivity. So where is the unification of pensions here?
Right.
Meanwhile, we know they are not contributing a penny to their pensions. But at the end of the day, the benefits they have in terms of lump sum is way more than those of us who are contributing to our pensions.
And it becomes even worse when the single spine salary structure has also not lived up to expectations.
Exactly.
So you lose from both ends.
Exactly. So we must ensure that if it's going to be the pension reforms that have come into place since 2010, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, every worker should be put in here. And we shouldn't be having capacity and the rest, because then we all know capacity is way better, way more than what the tier 2, for example, provides. And from what we've heard, we look at the restructuring of SNIT in terms of its governance, management, administrative processes, and all of that.
Must the law, the act itself be touched?
The law, yes.
Must the act be touched?
Yes. Of course.
Okay.
Of course, and I think organized labor can lead in this direction. We cannot wait for any entity to start this, and that is why, personally, I'm happy our technical committee has started working. I'm sure this is going to be one of the recommendations they are going to make, and we are going to take it up seriously and work towards it.
We have to look at the pension redistribution policy. I have always had the view that the way Senate is indexing pensions, I think it's about time we look at it. We need to reform it a little bit to reflect fully the principle of solidarity. You have a pension payroll where 7% of those rich pensioners in the upper bound control about 32%. Whereas we have...
what percentage did you mention? So the top tier?
7%.
7% control over 30%.
Over 30% in the upper bound. Whereas we have 68% in the lower bound, controlling just 37%. It is just telling us that there is something wrong with the way we redistribute pensions.
Now, if you look, there's a cap on the second tier and third tier management in terms of expenses or expenditure in managing the funds. Whereas if you look at SNIT expenditure, and in your introduction, you did mention some figures, there seem not to be a cap. And SNIT expenditure, we believe most of the funds, instead of going either into investment or accruing to the benefit of the members, is going into the management of the fund.
Although the labor unions, as the largest contributors to SNIT, are calling for the reduced government influence on the board, Dr. Kwabena Nyako is advising them to proceed with caution.
You have the head of the board being a journalist. Now, if you go to Denmark and if you go to South Africa, there's a criteria for being a member of their pension funds. We don't have it. Even in our own law, the MPRA, there's a criteria for being appointed a member of MPRA board, but there's no criteria for being a member of the SNIT board. This must change going forward. It is important that those we appoint to the governing structure of SNIT and all other pension funds have at least some knowledge and experience in investment and in finance. And that brings me to the question, even if you make sure that all our SNIT board members are actually from Labour,
okay,
do you really have the experience and the expertise to do? So it is important that we do not just talk about packing the SNIT board with people from Labour and all that. We should pack it with people with experience in investments.
But Austin Gami sides with the labor unions.
The governance structure is key. The president will have no business being the one, whether law or no law. We must go to a national tripartite committee meeting and have this important discussion concerning the socio-economic importance of it for us. So we let them know that we can no longer continue with this kind of arrangement.
Okay.
Where the president will be employing a number of people and they go and make a decision and then come out with their policy designs and so forth and publish it in papers. We don't think that will be holding well for anybody.
Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Pension Trustees, Thomas Esso, argues that pension contributions should be based on gross emoluments instead of just the basic salary.
Needs and the private pension, all of us, to start fighting for what we call the needs or pensions should be tied to your gross emoluments. Then in that case, your basic and your allowances and any benefit that you are earning, the employer is computing your basic, your pension on that. And that is a point that I think that SNIT and the private trustees, we can position ourselves and try to push an amendment for the law to get to that stage.
Abdullah Mashoud says some attention must also be given to Tier 2 and Tier 3 contributions.
Countries that have adopted the multi-tier pension system who have been successful, what they sought to do is to get an excellent connectivity between the various tiers. And that is what we have not been able to do. We have had a very serious disconnect between Tier 1 and Tier 2, operationally and systemically. What I would say is that we need to look, stakeholders will need to look at improving the regulation and administration of the Tier 2 schemes. That is very, very important. You know, we are looking at a 3-tier pension system. And if we go and we are just looking at Tier 1, without really focusing on what is happening at Tier 2, or we focus on Tier 2 and not looking at what is happening at the Tier 1, at the end of the day, we are not going to meet the overall objectives. It is important we look at it as a whole.
Away from that, the chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, has asserted that even though the 2020 general elections were largely peaceful, the Peace Council have concerns when the nation experiences pockets of unrest, reckless utterances, among others. He said the violence that characterized the elections in some constituencies would continue to dent the image of the country. Reverend Dr. Edujemfi said this at the 2024 dialogue series held in Tamale.
Is the second after a similar one was held ahead of the 2020 elections. The series, organized by the Peace Council, seeks to foster unity and to contribute in ensuring peaceful and credible elections. Dr. Edujemfi said, to move beyond our collective pain to a place of healing, the National Peace Council engaged people who were affected in the elections.
The National Peace Council engaged stakeholders in the 5 constituencies where the unfortunate loss of lives occurred, namely Ewutu Senya, Odododiodio, Ablekuma Central, Techiman South, and Savulugu. The lessons learned and the recommendations from these engagements were documented to serve as building blocks for a 3-day national dialogue that took place from 29th June to the 1st of July 2021 in Adan. The national dialogue developed a roadmap that sought to counter election-related violence and strengthen processes to building a greater cohesion, political tolerance, and nation building. One of the recommendations from the National Dialogue was to institute a platform for inter-party dialogue for regular consensus building. The Peace Council is happy to report that since January 2023, that goal has been achieved.
The Peace Council chairperson said democracies around the world are under attack, adding that not even the champions of democracy have been spared.
Looking at events around the world, it appears democracies across the globe are under attack, to the extent that the champions of democracy, the United States of America, has not even been spared. Election, which is in many democracies is accepted as the mechanism for choosing leaders for states, have now become a ground for violence.
Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Ms. Berry Freeman, said social media had the potential of triggering violence if people use it wrongly.
This year's elections, the 9th since 1992, will again test the resilience of Ghana's democratic process. Misinformation and disinformation that spreads all too quickly on social media, youth's disenchantment with politics, socioeconomic hardship, and a rise in inflammatory statements and hate speech. These are all factors that could unleash negative passions and trigger violence during the electoral period.
The Northern Regional Minister, Shani Alhassan Shaibu, said instability in neighboring countries should remind Ghanaians to opt for peace.
Instability in neighboring countries reminds us of the importance of conflict prevention. Ghana's discovery of oil, the challenge of illegal mining, and the potential for resource-related conflicts further emphasizes the need for proactive measures to maintain peace.
In other stories, Minister of State at the Office of the President, Ambrose Dery, has debunked allegations that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's campaign team was harboring persons whose credibility were suspicious. Chief Executive Officer of a defunct microfinance company in a viral video is seen presenting a white smock to the flag bearer of the NPP during his recent campaign tour to Nandom, which got the tongues of critics of the NPP wagging. Now, Ambrose Dery, in an exclusive interview with Joy News, asserted the defunct CEO of DKM did no wrong, as he is a member of the Nandom royal family and a member of the New Patriotic Party.
Whistle-stop campaign tour of Vice President and flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. 4 days, 11 constituencies, and one moment of probable controversy who their opponents are bent on cashing in. This picture of the defunct Chief Executive Officer of DKM, Dikomuni Martin Dele, which was posted on social media, presenting a white smoke to Dr. Bawumia on behalf of the Nandom royal family, got thanks wagging. The Dr. Bawumia campaign team is accused of harboring persons who have checkered history and, for that matter, having suspicious credibility. Former Interior Minister, a member of Parliament for Nandom, Ambrose Dery, however, thinks otherwise and explains further in this interview.
As far as I know, DKM is not a criminal. He has not been convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction for anything. And I think I should as well take this opportunity to put things in context. The issue that came up and people are beginning to talk of DKM was about seeing DKM on TV holding a white smoke with the flag bearer of the MPP. And that is because DKM is a member of the royal family of the Nandom traditional area. And the Nandom now Professor Dele had asked that smoke be given to the vice president. He was sitting on his throne, and therefore DKM held the smoke and they stretched it to the vice president. If you recall, was grilled by Parliament my second vet for my second term as Minister for Interior on DKM, and I made things clear to them. Martin Dele had a duly registered financial institution with the Bank of Ghana, and therefore Bank of Ghana had a duty to be monitoring it. When it happened and all the investigations came out, because he had registered, there was a liquidator who was appointed. Liquidator took over the company, liquidated it, made the money he could get from the assets, and therefore paid all people who the company owed. And that's what it is. So he's a Ghanaian, and may I ask that even people in prison have votes.
Now, Evodia Foundation, an NGO, has supported the Menchia Government Hospital with medical equipment and consumables to improve services at the pediatric units. These include thermometer, nebulizers, pulse oximeters, bed sheets, and diapers. This presentation is particularly geared towards meeting the needs of women and children seeking care at the hospital. Here's a report by Clinton Yeboah.
Executive Director of Evodia Foundation, Lordina Sewa Boache, says their core mandate is to support the vulnerable in society, especially women and children. She highlighted the item donated to the Menchia Government Hospital and urged the facility to make good use of them.
Okay, presented a couple of chairs, bed sheets, nebulizers, pulse oximeters, thermometers, and diapers, wipes, a whole lot of things. And then our main focus is to help the needy, especially women and children, because they are very, very vulnerable in society. And we started with the hospital and then the pediatric ward because these are our young children who are going to become our future leaders. And then we think that if we help them first, it would help to bring life into the society.
Head of the pediatric unit at the Menchia Government Hospital, Aisha Abubakar, expressed gratitude to the foundation and called on other philanthropists to aid with other equipment such as pediatric monitor.
These are things we need, especially the medical equipment, the nebulizers and those things. Children who cannot breathe. That is what we use in giving them the medication into their lungs. So we are very much grateful to them. This will help us in taking care of our children. So we are very grateful to this. We want to get a pediatric monitor. That is children who are critically ill. That thing will help in at least saving them. So it's one of the things we even told them, like say, young foundation. So if anybody coming to our aid, we need pediatric monitor. That will help us.
Reporting for Joy News, my name is Clinton Yeboah.
And students of Abasua in the Abasua Junior High School in the Sechere Central District, who used to trek several kilometers to school in nearby communities, can now access education in their backyard. This follows the construction and donation of a junior high school block, toilet facility and a mechanized borehole to the local Abasua DA Junior High School by popular American preacher and philanthropist Apostle Wayne Jackson and wife, Dr. Beverly Jackson. Education authorities are happy that the children can now enjoy school. There's more in this report.
Executive Director of Evodia Foundation, Lordina Sewa Boache.
For several years now, the Abasua community has been without a junior high school. This means students after completing primary school will have to travel to nearby communities such as Achia and Anwenya to continue JHS. Many of these students end up carrying luggage of Christian pilgrims who visit the holy Abasua mountains for a fee. Headmaster of the local Abasua DA Primary School, Richard Boache, is unhappy many of his former students failed to further their education.
When I came here, there wasn't any JHS in this school, but we realized that after the primary 6, they used to further the education at one of the nearby towns, Achia. Yeah, so we realized that when they are to move to the Achia JHS, they don't go to the school. They normally, we see them rotting about and then carrying some load to the mountains for money.
The story is, however, changing thanks to the benevolence of a popular American preacher, Apostle Wayne Jackson, and his wife, Dr. Beverly Jackson. They have donated a newly constructed JHS block, toilet facility, and mechanized borehole to the community. The couple who are senior pastors at the US-based Great Faith Ministries International, also constructed a palace for the chief as a befitting gesture. Apostle Wayne Jackson tells a handing over ceremony he was touched by the plight of the community after a religious pilgrimage to the community.
We climbed that big mountain to pray. And while I was up there, God told me to come help my people. Ghana is rich with minerals, rich in gold, rich in real estate. But I came not to invest in real estate or minerals. I came to invest in people.
Apostle Wayne Jackson, founder and president of the Impact Network, the only all-African founded and operated national Christian television network, also donated food items to residents of Abesua. District Education Director Kwame Ado says the gesture will go a long way to improve teaching and learning in the community.
The community has been crying for a JHS. When they complete the premises, they have to trek to Akshia and Anwenya for their junior high school education. And because of that, the community has been crying for a junior high school. And thanks be to God, we had a donor to give us a very nice structure with furniture to all the rooms that we have over there. And with this, it will go a long way to improve teaching and learning in the school.
Meanwhile, Apostle Wayne Jackson and wife are promising to establish an ICT lab for the school. Ohimi Interior's report, read to you.
Congratulations to the entire Abesua community. And on that note, Business Update is coming up next with Benjamin Akakbo.
Welcome to Business on the AM show. Now, economist Professor Lord Mensah has disclosed that the $1.2 billion Ghana accrued as savings from crude oil exports and commercial quantities will boost the country's forex reserves in order that the economy can withstand future shocks. He believes the amount saved could also serve as a buffer for the stabilization fund in the event of inflow shortfalls to pay for oil imports. Professor Mensah spoke to Joy Business.
It's a good contribution to our petroleum, funds, both the stabilization and then the heritage fund. But then this was supposed to reflect in the mid-year budget review. You could see I have been, asking questions on what are the prospect as far as, our forex reserves is concerned. And clearly, the finance minister did not show any signal of, providing more information as to our possible dollar inflows as far as, the dollar buffers is concerned for this country. And so from where I sit, having this information, I can tell you, provides enough information for the market to give some assurance on the dollar buffer of this country. Even though, when you look at the 1.3 billion, I would say 1.3 billion because the figure is around 1.297, right? Thereabout. And so I will round it up to 1.3 billion. And I would say that it's not something that we can, by law, we can use them, as and when, the use of injections in our dollar buffer is concerned. But it gives some assurance and it gives some hope.
Well, from there, what's happening on the forex market? Well, we give you our currency market for this morning. And that's the note on which we cap off the business updates for the morning. Handing over back to Sweetie Abochi.
And that's it. Remember that Afel Moni, former GJA president, and Bernard Mono of Arise Ghana will be joining us for the news review segment, which is up next. Stay with us.